Hi everybody, we are going to be looking at the Sending Good Thoughts, the July Paper Pumpkin 2022 alternatives today. I have 6 of them for you, but before we get started, I'd like to share how I changed up the first 3 just a bit. This one, the first card, is basically exactly like the sample card. I just ruffled the edges or bent the edges with my thumb and glued only in the center of the starfish. On the inside of the card, I did the seaweed in Bermuda Bay and the Poppy Parade seahorse. I did exactly the same thing on the envelope. So that was card number 1. Card number 2, this card right here, I did exactly the way they showed it. The only thing is I used a little wink of Stella on the clouds, makes a world of difference. And on the inside, I just put the dots across the bottom. On the outside, I did the same thing, kind of bundling the the dots on the left side and then kind of tapering them down. So that is card number 2. And card number 3, I actually used a message in the bottle, a bottled happiness bottle to make my, put my message inside the bottle here. And I used the Bermuda Bay, I used some of the dots, I used the scroll, and I used the stopper from the Bottled Happiness as well. For the inside of the card, I actually used the negative space from the small bottle, which you could do on your envelope as well. And I kind of drug my dauber so it looked a little bit more like the lines that you see on glass. I use the dark gray here, or basic gray, and I use the Bermuda Bay here. And the thing that I did on this is I stamped my scroll upside down. So what I actually did is I flipped over my bottle and I just kind of randomly copied with my Stampin' Blends and my Stampin' Write markers the way the lines are on the bottle, which told me that if I wanted more of these, it would be real easy to just trace around the small, medium, and large bottles on basic white, cut them out, and then follow the designs on the bottles, and you could have a lot more bottles if you wanted them. Alrighty, so that's the 3 basic cards. I really enjoyed making them, and I might even make some more because I did like them this time. All right, the first card, the first alternative I'm going to show you is actually made with a mini pocket envelope die. And to create this cute little envelope, and it does fit a gift card, but you could easily just attach this to a regular gift and it would be darling. I used a piece of white, basic white, a piece of Bermuda Bay, and then I used the Rings of Happiness paper to cut out the die for the envelope. So let me give you the dimensions on that. So to make the envelope, I used the Rings of Love paper, and when you stamp it out, it just, when you cut it out, it's got these little, 2 little places that you fold up like this, and all you have to do is put a little glue on each of those and then fold it over, following the other score line, and you've got your mini envelope. It's really easy. So that's what you're going to do with that mini pocket envelope. You'll need a piece of crinkle ribbon and the little grommet that comes in the die, and I used Coastal Cabana for this one. Then I have a piece of basic white that is 2 by 3 3/4. I have a piece of Bermuda Bay that is 2 1/4 by 4. I rounded the edges on both of these pieces before I attached them, and I did my stamping on the white before I glued it on. I used some of the seaweed. I used a seahorse and the starfish. On the outside of the envelope, I added more of the starfish. I bumped up one of the seahorses and then used little sequins from an old kit to make that alternative. So I really like the way that turned out. And of course, if you don't want a little pocket like that, you could easily attach it to any of the 3 card bases. It would look cute on any of the 3 card bases, and you could put it at an angle and maybe stamp some more of the starfish around it. But easy to make it into a card, a regular size card, if you don't want a small envelope card. For the second alternative, I made a thinking of you, and what I like about this piece is, can you see the shine on, I know you can see the shine on my bottle, but not on my stopper, and that's because I used packing tape. After I stamped my image of the scroll and my starfish inside, I just took a piece of packing tape and I started right at the top of the bottle right here and pulled it down so the stopper doesn't have the shiny part. Can you see that? I think you could see it just a minute ago. Oh, there you go. Okay. Yeah. Don't you love that? Okay, I do. And so then I just cut around the bottle once I had my packing tape on there. Really easy. So for this card, you will need a fresh freesia card base. You will need the large bottle. You will need some twine. You'll need this flag sentiment. You'll need one of the coral pieces and one of the blue coral pieces. Oh, and I used the Thinking of You from the kit. I used some basic rhinestones, so to give it a little more shine as well. For the envelope, on the outside of the envelope, I put my starfish and the dots together so that I could randomly stamp them down. It made it really quick. And I used a crumb cake. Then I added Poppy Parade seahorses. On the back, I did the same thing. I used the crumb cake and one of the seahorses. So after I am done putting the packing tape on my bottle, I put that off to the side and I stamped on my card with the crumb cake. Then, bumping up on dimensionals, I laid down the bottle. I put glue only on the this middle section of the coral piece and then laid it over here, and actually some of the edges hung over. That was fine because I just trimmed them off when I was done. Then once I had it positioned the way I wanted, I laid a little more glue down so it would lay flat. I did the same thing with this piece. I started in the center and then I just kind of put some glue around the edges and tucked it underneath the bottle and over the bottle. Added a little seahorse up here. Now the piece, the banner that they give you in the card kit is much longer than I wanted, so what I did is I just kind of eyeballed it, cut it off, and then using my Stampin' Write marker in Bermuda Bay, I made my own line there. So I just made it a smaller banner and stamped "Thinking of You" in the Poppy Parade. On the inside, I did much like I did on the envelope. I did the crumb cake and then added 2 of the seahorses. Next card is the "Thinking of You" card again, and I used some Wink of Stella on the clouds. I don't know if you can see them on here, but they show up really well when I'm looking at it. I used one of the bottles. I double tied a bow using the twine. Used the starfish here, used the seaweed here, stamped the dots onto the starfish. On the inside, I just did starfish right up along the edge here, which corresponds with the way I did the envelope, just starfish up and down on the left-hand side, and then just on the end of the flap. Okay, you can make 2 of these cards using this embossed piece. And this is how you do it. So you'll need to cut a piece of Pacific Point that is 2 7/8 by 4 1/4. And then I cut my piece of embossed piece that is 2 5/8 by 4. And that'll just go right on there. So you'll glue those together just like that, and then stamp your starfish right across the bottom. You'll need some twine, 1 of the starfish, and then I'm using the holiday rhinestones to finish it off. So I glued my piece of embossed piece onto my Pacific Point, and then I glued or stamped my starfish. I stamped starfish in Pacific Point all around on the gray piece before I glued anything on it. Once that was done, then I glued the bottle just to the edge of the blue piece, and then I put dimensionals under the whole thing, including the bottle. So then I laid it right on top. Added a dimensional in the center of my starfish, flipped up the edges like I shared with you earlier, and then made a double bow and glued it right onto the side of the bottle. I used the "Thinking of You" from the kit. Easy to do. You could make this into a birthday card, any kind of card really easily. And again, if I were to do it again, I probably would add my packing tape to my bottle just to make it shimmery after I was done doing the stamping. I added the holiday rhinestones, the wink of Stella on the clouds. That's that card. Easy, right? Okay. The next card is actually a little bit of an interactive card. And for this card, on the outside of the envelope, I use the negative space to make my bottle again. Same technique as before, and then I used the dots. On this, I actually used this birthday piggy to get the sentiment, it's your birthday, and also on the inside, go to your happy place and stay there all day. I used the same negative space technique at a little bit of an angle to create my bottle inside with the dots. And then this card you can actually make, again, you can make two from the embossed pieces, that piece that came with the kit. This actually fit together like this, and I just cut out the edges. So I cut this at 2 5/8 by 4, and then I trimmed around the waves to make them into waves. I put dimensionals only on both sides and the bottom, leaving the top open so that my piece could slide in and out. I'm using some twine, the medium bottle, and I'm using these little raindrops from one of the old paper pumpkin kits. So I tied my twine around my bottle and tied it in a knot, stamped wishing you all the best. My piece slides right in there, in and out. I also used the seagull from Waves of Inspiration. I know in our past paper pumpkin we also had some seagulls. You could use those, or if not, just make your own little seagulls with a marker. It's not difficult. So added the water right here and up here, pieces of the water all around. And then again, my little bottle slips in and out of my card, making it kind of interactive. So that was a fun card to make. The next card I made is actually, it was inspired by where I live. I live on a hill in San Diego, North San Diego County, and I see the sunset every day. So I made my own sunset card, and the envelope, I just used crumb cake with the dauber, and then the starfish. Did the same thing here, just in a cluster on the left-hand side. I started with a white card base that is 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 4 1/4 on the 8.5 side. On this, and then on the inside, I did exactly the same thing as I did on the envelope. So for this card, you're going to need one of the circles, sentiment circles, and I made that into the sun. You'll need one of the flapping seagulls and the flying seagulls. You will need one of the banners. And then I made my own template using the negative space from the coral. And then I used 2 pieces of paper to kind of mask. So you could also use masking paper as well, tape. Okay, so the first thing I did was I used my daubers, and I used Daffodil Delight. Started in the upper left-hand corner and just kind of worked my way out. Then I added some Pacific Point. Now on the Pacific Point, I didn't just go straight from the ink pad to the paper. I kind of pounced it off first so it was lighter shade. And I did that kind of in the middle here. And then I added the crumb cake at the bottom. So then I was ready to layer that up. The next thing I did was I added my coral. So you'll see that it's just in the corner right here. So I laid it on my piece of cardstock on my base, and then I just made my own mask with the paper like this, and then I daubed with my dauber straight up and down. Don't rub, because you will break off these little pieces. And when it came to the little fussy pieces, I just kind of held down with one finger and I daubed. Then I moved over and daubed, and then up here held it down and daubed, and then I could daub every place else. But up and down, not side to side, up and down. The last thing I did was to add a couple of stamped pieces, the starfish, and then 3 of the scrolls. And I used the Sending a Little Message from Bottled Happiness, but you could pick your own sentiment. To create my sun, I used Poppy Parade, same as the coral. And then I added on top of it the Daffodil Delight, which gave me this orangish color. So the orange is created by the Daffodil Delight over the Poppy Parade. Stamped it all, glued it all together, and then put dimensionals on the back and laid it down. So, simple card. Effective. All right, then we have one more. And again, using the pieces from the kit, you can make 2 of these from one of the embossed pieces. And it looks like this. So I like the layered effect. For this card, I used the, what's it called? Friends Are Like Seashells for my sentiments. And for the extra fan scallop shell, you can use your own shells as well, anything that you would like, or don't have one at all. For this card, I used one of the Bermuda Bay card bases. I have a piece of Coastal Cabana. This one actually was a garden green piece, but I'm using Coastal Cabana for this one, just a scrap. And then I took one of these, pieces that was like this, and I just cut it at 1 inch, so I had 4 of these pieces, and I'll use 2 on this card and then 2 on this card. First thing I did was I glued these onto my Coastal Cabana piece so that I had one big piece. So just overlap like this. Okay, nothing fancy. And then I stamped on my Bermuda Bay with the 2 stamps together, randomly, left to the left side blank. And I stamped the Friends Are Like Seashells sentiment using Poppy Parade. I stamped the dots on the starfish. Then you need one of the seahorses, you need a seagull, and you need one of the small bottles. And then I stamped and cut out one of the fan shells from the Friends Are Like Seashells. And then remember these sea glass pieces that we had in Paper Pumpkin a few months ago? I went ahead and painted some of them with my Stampin' Blends to create the Bermuda Bay color. So let's talk about how to put this one together. For the envelope, I just used Bermuda Bay on the corner and then across the flap, just like I was doing on the card base. Okay, after the card base is done and you've stamped whatever sentiment you want with Poppy Parade, then I took this piece that's now made of the 3 pieces and I put dimensionals on it and bumped it up. Then I just layered everything on top of it. So I added my bottle. I put some dimensionals on the right hand side and just glued it flat on the left. Then added my my seashell, my starfish, and then the seahorse, and lastly I added the seagull. I took some of that sea glass and added it along the bottom and across the top. On the inside, I'm so happy I found you in Poppy Parade and the Bermuda Bay kind of collage on the right hand side. So that does it. I hope you are inspired to make your own alternatives. It's a lot of fun.